Well, hello friends out there in YouTube land. Robert Hamm here with Robert Hamm Photography. Today I'm answering your questions. Today's question comes from Phil over in Heidelberg, Germany. The question is from Instagram. Phil, I'm going to paraphrase your question right here, but Phil asks, "Hey Rob, I've been watching your videos on the TL70 and I really enjoy them. I'd like to know which would be a better fit for me. I'm new to photography with Instax, and the TL70 is $420. That's US dollars over in Germany. Would I be better suited started off with an Instax camera?" And my answer for that is a resounding no. There's no need to start with an Instax camera. You're going to outgrow it quickly, especially if you have any kind of love for the medium and you go into it. The TL70 would be my choice for any of the sophisticated cameras out there right now, and there's a particular reason for that. But know that I spent 3 hours making this video, so it's hard for me to explain this question and give you a good answer that I would like to give with all the detail and a nice compare and contrast. So if this video doesn't give you the exact answer you want, wait for the formal series where I compare and contrast the Mini 90 to the TL70 with tests and everything else. But the reality is, no, there's no reason not to buy the best that's on the market. I think that Mint has done a good job. And instead of comparing and contrasting the lens to the lens, let's just share with you my own criteria for what would make a deliverable image in the first place. I'm a wedding photographer, and my work has to meet a specific value to the customer. I have to have a look. I've built a brand that's important, and that people seek out my brand. Now, one of the things that people say about me, and they understand about my photography, is that I have the ability to see the yellow in the world. I produce very warm images, and this is important. I've made videos that talk about the fact that your camera sensor sees in black and white. The yellow, the color of the filter array is a secondary process to whether or not the digital sensor is actually creating color. In fact, that's why the Bayer filter or the X-Trans filter or the Kodak filter, these array systems of filters are very important to a digital camera's ability to render an image. Because guess what? The cell phone that you used to take a picture of your puppy dog Fido last night takes a picture in black and white and then applies a color to it based on the Bayer arrangement that it has. And those two processes, although integral to the entire image, happen to be separate processes within the actual sensor on a chip process itself. And that's important. Film is completely different. Film has emulsive layers that allow light to penetrate to different links on the emulsion, and then that is developed. Why does film often look warmer than digital images? Like you go out and you buy a digital camera and you take pictures with it, and you know those images are cold and moody. It's because light balance. Film is daylight balanced to the outdoors to produce a very warm image. Even FUJIFILM Instax Film is balanced towards the daylight. However, those three criteria are coming about. The first thing is focus. The ability to actually focus the TL70 with a big bright viewfinder and a real focusing screen all the way down to 48 centimeters all the way out to 2 meters and then infinity is excellent. That is important because you can get a sharp focus, a real-time focus on anything that you want, from the corner of the glasses, the nose, the ear, the ring, the bouquet, the flowers, Fido's tail wagging on a happy day while he's eating a steak. You can capture that because you can actually focus. So on other instant cameras that are out there, focus does not work that way. Focus is much more of a zone focus, a scale focus system, and you don't get a real-time focus. The second thing that is important for my work to be considered excellent is that I had to have proper exposure. Now, this is where you might find some alternate perspectives out there if you allow the internet to judge your life, right? There are people out there that don't have the experience with not only photography, but far less Instax film that talk about this camera and may say things that it has inconsistent exposures. Like, I'm shooting when the light is green, but I'm getting in a blown out shot. I don't understand it. There's a problem. No, actually there is no problem. They don't understand how the camera meters. Most cameras out there today, including your cell phone, use a spot metering system, like when you tap it and it changes the exposure and the focus to match that spot that you tapped. That's called spot metering because you tapped the spot. Back in the day, they couldn't move the spot around like on a cell phone, so the spot was the center 1.5 or 2 degrees of the camera. That's where the metering system spotted for. So you would do something like look at your picture, put the center of that circle on the spot, such as the face, and then recompose. This is where we get the term the Nikon nod. right? When you see a photographer look up and then recompose and take the picture, look up and they're focusing, they're shooting, they're spot metering and recomposing. It's a very popular way to shoot with film, and I use it today for digital because it's fast, consistent, and easy. It's part of my system. But this camera doesn't meter with a spot, it meters with a matrix. And the matrix is much wider. It tells more about the scene. The electronic eye is taking in a wider field of view than the actual camera lens is. And because of that, you may think that the reading of the green lens, the green dot in there, has more to do with the actual inconsistency of it to take the image or not. Well, it doesn't. This camera is much more manual than what you might expect. And it's full aperture priority with exposure control rather than program or spot, which means that you have to do a little bit more thinking. You've got to engage the software. It's not a hardware problem, it's a software problem. Now, you want proof of that, check out my first 100 shots with this film. I'm bringing you my first 10 rolls. I'm calling the rolls cartridges because it's funny, and vice versa. So what happens is I blew my first roll of film with this camera trying to understand how the camera was metering. Once I understood what the camera was doing, I was able to make the adjustments, and now I'm producing excellent quality images. Exposure is spot on. Finally, I have to have the ability to separate the subject of my photograph from the background. Other Instax cameras won't do it, mainly because you have to have a wide aperture in order to show a depth of field that is very shallow on such a small medium. Now, we recognize that instant film, Instax Mini, is medium format film, but unlike a negative medium format film, I don't have the ability to enlarge this. So Fujifilm and others have gone with small apertures because it helps hyperfocal distances and keeps everything in focus. Especially when you're using zone focus, it helps make sure that any bad judgments of focus by the user can be corrected with a hyperfocal distance. Well, MiNT doesn't need to have that on the TL70 because you can focus directly by yourself. I can focus a wide or a narrow depth of field just by changing my aperture based on the shooting condition. And when I want to shoot a portrait, which as a wedding photographer I do, I'm able to get great portraits because I can use a wider aperture and position the person closer to the camera, getting what I like to consider the three-quarter or the bust portraits or the headshot type of portrait, and then have a beautifully blurred out background. Wow. In my own ranking with the photographers that help me with weddings when I need them, they have to produce work that is both properly focused with a correct exposure and show separation of subject to background in order for me to include it. It doesn't get included in a deliverable image if it's only 2 out of the 3. It will never be included if it was only 1 out of the 3. It must have all 3. And those get rid of the subjectivity that the art form is and put it back down to an empirical value. Can I say that the subject was in focus? Yes. Can I say that the subject is exposed properly? Yes. And can I say that there's a background separation between the subject and the background? Yes. If there is, then I can include that without any emotive feeling. I can say that this is an image worthy of including. That's why I use the TL70 and recommend it for you. Yes, the learning curve is steeper. If you watch my videos, it won't be as steep because you won't have to make my mistakes. Yes, you have to engage your software. I'm talking about your brain. You have to think more. No, this is not point and shoot. I know MiNT likes to say that it is, and if by pushing that little red shutter button they mean point and shoot, then yes, it is. However, excellence will happen when you start thinking about it. If you handed these 2 cameras to your grandmother, any camera, this one or any other instant camera, it's a toss-up as to whether or not which one would be easier for them to use. But the one that would be better for you to use in the long run as a project, as something that you can pass down to your kids later, as far as build quality with brushed metal, soft touch sizes. I know that it's probably all injection molded plastic, but you don't feel that when you touch it. You feel the soft brushed metal down here, you feel the soft touch sides. It feels stout in your hands, it's bigger, it definitely does not feel fragile. It feels like something that you can take with you and share for a lifetime. And by the way, when you're looking at cameras, the TL70 will get you noticed and help you make friends because people think it's a camera from the 1900s and like 1910. And when that picture pops out and you hand it to them, it will be such a surprising moment that is great for everyone involved. So for those reasons, I suggest the TL70. And why not start off your camera adventure with Instax, with the best that's out there? Recognize you're going to have some learning to do, but it's going to be extraordinarily rewarding. And just talk a second about usability. I had an old engineering professor that used to say to me that the more difficult the system to use, the more productive the system would be. And he was talking about like programs like CAD and stuff. Like you can go and get into Google SketchUp and it's really easy to use straight off the bat, but open up Fusion 360 and they're tough. Both do the same thing, but you can create more in Fusion 360 once you understand the program. It's got a different learning curve. Same thing with like Google Snapseed versus Adobe Photoshop. Same thing with your automatic versus your manual. If you want performance, go with the manual, right? I mean, otherwise, then drive an automatic. For example, in my car, I've got a 6-speed double clutch manual. Guess what? I've wanted it for the performance, guys. That's just the way that it was. I didn't want the automatic. I wanted the manual control. Between all Instax cameras out there, the one that's going to give you the most manual control is the TL70. And because of that, there's going to be a different kind of learning curve. It doesn't make it worse, bad, or broken. It just makes it more capable, which requires more attention. And for me, that's part of the journey. Guys, I'm Robert Hamm with RobertHammPhotography.com. Today I've been answering Phil's question in Heidelberg, Germany about which should he get. My suggestion is obvious. I want to thank you for watching and remind you that I will catch you on the flip side.